Hey, it's Greg Milby, Community Storyteller for Kentucky's Heartland. There's my weather dude. That is
How's it
George
going?
Herbig. He is with us with Weather Now Kentuckiana, and George has been working his tail off over the last few weeks, keeping us here in the Heartland updated with weather information. And he's got another situation, another storm, I guess, or advisory to talk about here in a few minutes.
Yeah,
But George, before we get to that, this
sure.
weather that we had over the weekend and the beginning of the week, there was a lot of talk and a lot of movement in this storm. So from the weather side of it all and predicting and
hmm
forecasting weather, what made this last storm front such a challenge to pinpoint down?
Yeah, and you're going to hear from anybody that was forecasting that storm that was one of the more complex setups that we've had in a long, long time come through, especially in the wintertime. So usually when you get situations like this in the winter, you can get what we call phasing systems. And a phasing system is basically just two low pressures that come together from different spots in the country. They phase over an area and then they'll usually go up the East Coast. 9 times out of 10, when that happens, they love to travel those low pressures, but after they merge, they love to travel along the Appalachian Mountains, along the Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia corridor out there. Well, the model data at some points it would signify to us that it would take that historical track, and then at other times it would take it all the way out to the East Coast, almost to the ocean out there. Eventually, what had ended up happening was the two low pressures didn't merge until actually after it passed through the Kentucky Virginia corridor, and then it went up to the northeastern coast and absolutely pounded snowfall there. So the biggest thing that was so hard with this last system was figuring out where those two low pressures would actually phase, and usually it's a lot easier than it was. However, there are two very active jet streams going on right now, and basically, what that means is there's two active patterns of energy moving through our country at the moment that is extremely, extremely high in total energy. And what I mean by that is you're going to feel what I'm talking about here in a couple of weeks when we get this Arctic air in here, and we could get close to 0 degrees. And some places will go into the negatives here in a couple of weeks because that's how far south that Arctic dip is happening from the Canadian border. On top of that, we have moisture coming from the south side toward the Gulf of Mexico and out toward Arizona and Texas and whatnot. So a lot of active stuff is happening, and that's what made that system so complex. And that's why a lot of people got it wrong at first, including myself. We're transparent out here, and we eventually got it down very close to it actually happening. But I will tell you, even model data 8 to 10 hours out before that storm started was still showing shifting happening in that low pressure merging. So there were a lot of different aspects at play there. The only thing we knew for sure is that it was going to be cold afterwards. That was really it. There was nothing for sure about that storm. This storm's a little bit different. We got much more confidence in this one. But that was one of the. I've done this for about 8 years now. Not a whole long time, but long enough to know that that was one of the most complex setups that I've ever seen. And we learned a lot from that setup. We learned a lot. So that's what we try to do with setups like that. Something we don't see very much. We try to take as much data away from it as possible and learn from it so we can do better in the future.
Well, I know you've taken this at the very beginning, which probably to you felt like a hobby, and turned it into a passion for life, because you spent a lot of hours going over that data.
Oh,
You just don't take, now, I know some people may believe this, but you just don't take a dart and throw it at a dartboard. There's a lot
oh
of
no.
time and science that goes into that. How much time do you think you spend on an average storm, whether it be that springtime storm or these
Uh-huh.
winter storms that we deal with?
Well, it all depends on the complexity of the situation and how many variables that we have at play. For example, that last system, I spent about there were a couple of 16-hour days just staring at the computer, just going over data. And people love to watch models, and anybody can pull up a model from any site. However, we have to look at the analytical data that comes with that. Then the best thing that you can do as a weather forecaster, meteorologist, whatever you want to call people, is actually compare that analytical data to historical data and see how that pairs up. And that's how we knew that this storm would actually track that last one we were just talking about would track over the Appalachian Mountains, because when we took that data, we took what it looked like and compared it to previous storms that we had seen, we saw that track. It was just a matter of the model seeing it. So we knew that the model showing us these 25-inch snowfalls in Kentucky early on wasn't accurate. There was no way. We also knew that it's showing an ice storm or 0 inches of snow in Kentucky was also inaccurate because it was too obvious that there was too many things that play for the models to kind of understand and communicate. What a lot of people don't understand is that models are just a bunch of algorithms until you can get actual weather data from weather balloons that we send up into the sky provided by our government. It's actually just a major guess. So that's why you have to dig deeper into, we look at what we call sounding data and whatnot. So that last storm, there were a couple of 16-hour days. This system, I mean, we've already put in 12 to 14 hours on this one. On an average storm, looking at 6 to 7 hours a day, but we're looking at, that's probably on the low end. It does make up for it sometimes when we get the calmer periods. That's how weather people kind of balance themselves, is we'll go crazy over the more complex situations, but we'll get a nice little break and we'll take a little sabbatical, if you will, when we get a couple of nice days out here. So it's always a balance you'll try to find.
Well, I understand you're not going to get a sabbatical anytime soon, and
Oh,
we'll lead into that here in just a few minutes on down the road. So let's talk about this week. Let's talk about Wednesday afternoon. Talk about this weather that's coming through. What are we going to see? And
yeah,
everybody wants to know snow totals and when we're going to start to see this action happening.
of course. So this is a much less complex system. However, it is another low pressure traveling from the southwest actually, that is trying to travel north, and this is taking a more historical route. So it's a lot easier for us to forecast. However, there is one little issue with this. There is a lot of shifting happening in these late model runs. So we're seeing some different things happening according to the model data. We're seeing one big thing at play here is, as you'll notice, the temperature is starting to rise a little bit in the state, and it'll continue to rise actually into Wednesday. We're going to see highs near 45 degrees in some places before it actually tanks. By the time the system is done Wednesday night to Thursday morning, we'll see temperatures close to the single digits in some places, and the lower teens in other places. I'm sure if you've seen your weather apps or you look at anything recently, you've seen the high in the 45s, close to that, and lows all the way down to 17 degrees. And there's a reason for that. Massive Arctic air is coming into this play, and it'll play a major hand. The big question with this one is not whether we'll see precipitation. We will see precipitation. The big question is, when does it change over to snow? Will there be sleet and freezing rain for a long time to kind of cut in those snow totals? Will there be more rain than we anticipate? Will there be less of a rain shield, what we call? A rain shield is basically just how much coverage precipitation makes. So there's a lot of what we call boom and bust potential with this. Boom meaning that we could see some places really overachieve our current snowfall projections just because maybe they switch over to the snow faster because the cold air gets to them faster. On the other side of that, the bust potential, maybe it stays warmer for longer. Maybe that low pressure comes too far north and brings some of that warm air with it even farther north. A lot of boom and bust potential here. The timing is really everything with this. The timing is really everything.
And George, let me know when you want, and we'll throw the radar graphic up on the screen.
That sounds awesome. We can go ahead and do that now. I'm discussing the timing with everybody, and that'll help them kind of understand as well. So as you can see, we're starting clearly with rain. We've mentioned that the entire time, and then you can see a clear transition over to snow. But as it starts back over, I kind of want Greg to pause that right before it transitions from snow or rain to snow, and we can show you the line in between that has some of the sleet and freezing rain with it. We're looking at the rain moving in around noon to 2 p.m. on Wednesday, right? So as you can see, if he pauses it right there, if he can't even pause it,
yeah, it won't let me pause it for some odd
that's
reason.
That's all good. Well, we'll see it multiple times. That you can see right along where that rain snow line kind of almost mixes, you'll see some very heavy snowfall rates. And that's why we're looking at some places like maybe Elizabethtown and the Radcliffe, maybe back out toward Caneyville, going into Lexington. And this spot can shift. This is what we were talking about with that boom bust potential with shifting. So if that rain snow line is kind of stalls out a little bit north, we could talk about places like Louisville and Tell City, Indiana, right along that Ohio River. Those places like that could really see higher snowfall totals versus the southern portions into central Kentucky. So it's all about where those lines kind of set up and stall out. That's where we're really going to see those higher snowfall totals. So the timing looks to be, again, around noon to 2 p.m. or so. Eastern time, we see that rain kind of move in. Again, the temperatures will still be in the upper or lower 40s at that point. So again, very clearly rain at that point. They're going to see around 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern time a switch over to some sleet potentially. Freezing rain if you're in the southern portions of the state near Bowling Green, Hopkinsville, maybe even all the way up to Campbellsville. And you'll see that pink and purple. That's very clearly freezing rain and sleet. And that's what we're talking about is a brief period of that down there for the southern portions of the state because you'll simply just be warmer for a longer period of time versus the northern portion of the state. And then around 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. or so, we'll see a solid switch over to some heavy snowfall. And I'm talking about pretty heavy snowfall rates here of 1 to 2 inches per hour briefly. And then it's a very quick storm after that. Around midnight, it kind of shuts off. But still, even in that brief period of time, we can see some impressive snowfall totals for a brief system like this. And Greg can go ahead and pull the snowfall map up that we sent him earlier if he would like. And this is what we're talking about. So the best chance for the highest snowfall totals is clearly at the moment in the central, what we call the Heartland portion of the state. Ergo, the name of the page that Greg runs here. The blue zone, we have a 2 to 5 inch kind of marker on that, and that's valid for Shepherdsville, Madisonville, Perryville. And again, the very important thing to remember, this is a first call for snowfall. This is not the final map. This is likely to change a little bit because, again, we're going back to the shifting potential that we could possibly see here. Then we have a 1 to 3 inch zone, basically for a lot of the places outside of that central and northern portion of Kentucky area. And then I'm going to actually add a ice potential zone for Bowling Green, Hopkinsville, going into Campbellsville a little bit, because the latest data is showing us that we'll see more freezing rain down there. And that'll cut into the snowfall totals. That's why you see a trace to 2 inch marker with that light blue band, because that's where we feel like the sleet, the freezing rain can really cut into those totals and really make it harder to achieve any higher snowfall rates out there. So that's basically a in-depth rundown of what to expect. Very quick storm, but a very impactful storm here. I mean, I would expect the National Weather Service to issue some advisories and even winter storm warnings within the next few hours to try and prepare people to increase their urgency to be prepared for this. So just expect those evolutions to happen over the next few hours.
You know, George, we need to come up with some kind of grading scale, like on the 1, on the 5, on the French toast rating.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everybody goes crazy with their milk, eggs, and bread. We need to maybe come up with some kind of graphic that has a 1 to 5 rating on French toast on what they're going to need for
I definitely, I've explored that. I mean, as I told you before in our last interview, Brian Gibbs, one of my big idols, he had what he called a Twix bar scale for the longest. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but he had like a Twix scale because he loves Twix bars. So the more Twix bars he had on the scale, the more important the system was. So I might have to do something like that, but with coffee cups, maybe even bourbon bottles. I don't know. So,
hey, now you're speaking my language. So once we get past this storm, we get past this precipitation, which looks like, I mean, from what you're talking now, we're going to get something, no matter what it looks like. We're not done yet. You're tracking some stuff in the future here. So talk a little bit about what potentially we could see over the next month or so.
Yeah, so we're actually in what's called a La Nina year, which basically quick rundown just means that the ocean is a lot cooler in some places that really matter to us, and that can influence our weather in a big way. Last time we saw a La Nina year was 2018. We saw a lot of quick snowfalls in the latter portions of winter, and that's exactly what we're seeing for this winter as well. So we're seeing snowfall potential on January 25th. Now, again, this is all potential, subject to change, and the further you get out, the less accurate it gets. However, the fact that we're already seeing signals of this is pretty indicative of how active our jet stream is right now. We're seeing signals of a potential snow clipper system, potential of 1 to 3 inches of snow on January 25th. But again, take it with a grain of salt. We're looking at a potential for a snowstorm on January 31st. February 7th, we're seeing signals of massive Arctic air in place with a Gulf low pressure coming in, which is exactly what happened with that last storm. So again, that's going to be another tough one to forecast. There's going to be a lot of time put into the forecast over the next 3 to 4 weeks even. And that's what we mentioned actually when I put out my winter prediction in November. I mentioned there were a lot of cold shots that's going to happen. There was a lot of moisture at play here, and we're seeing it come to fruition right now. It's all a matter of timing, how the stuff lines up. Seems like we have to get a perfect scenario to happen to get a nice snowfall here in Kentucky. But I can't rule it out. I mean, there's still, I believe, a couple of winter storms that happen before winter is all said and done.
Well, part of this is my fault. My snowblower is still over at my storage facility. So once I get the
Man,
snowblower to
Greg,
my house, I would
yeah.
say we probably won't have any more snow. That's usually how it works for me. So I apologize.
I have to get me a new snowblower myself. Not going to cut it for this year. Apparently, it looks like with these heavy wet snowfalls that we're projecting to get over the next few weeks, it's going to be pretty tough. Going to be pretty tough on those snowblowers.
So if somebody wants you're continually updating, and as the storms
Absolutely.
change and the forecast changes, you're doing that. So talk about your Facebook page real quick, and there's the where they can find you guys at Weather Now Kentuckiana. How often do you update stuff on your page?
Yeah, that's a great question. So even if like a lot of data doesn't change, I try to update at least every 4 hours, mainly because that's when people are coming back to check the page and whatnot. We're looking to update every 4 hours, and usually every 6 hours we get new data. So we're always updating, no matter what the data shows us, whether it's something that we like or don't like. That's what we focus on. Is transparency is our priority at that page. I mean, like I said just 10 minutes ago in the interview, at first we got the last system wrong, and that's okay. It happens. What matters is that we learn from that and do better in the future. And pretty much everyone got that last system wrong at first. So that goes to show how complex that was. But back to the page situation here. So yeah, you can find us on Facebook at the WNKWX you can search that. You could simply search WNK in the Facebook search bar. And like Greg said, we try to update pretty often on the page. We keep it transparent. We try to make sure that you guys are up to date with the newest information. And a lot of times it can change pretty often, but it's very, very important that you guys have all the information possible. And that's why we started the page, was to make sure that you guys weren't getting left out on any information that people didn't want to tell you. We want to make sure you have all the information. You can make your own judgments on what to do, and we'll let it roll from there.
And if people are on the go and they're like, well, I don't really have a lot of time to check that forecast on the Facebook page and worry about that.
Yeah.
There's an option for them. Talk about how they can get those text notifications.
Oh, absolutely. You can definitely, I don't know if he'll pull it up on the screen here to help you out with it or not. But perfect. You can text that number. We're trying to text that number is WNK. The easy as that. 3 letters. Text WNK to that number right there, and you'll get alerts, notifications for any inclement updates. Whenever we send them out is whenever it's something serious. We don't use a text service for anything like spam or nothing like that. It's safe and secure, and it's a great way. And I always tell people all the time, there is not too many ways to get alerts and notifications whenever it comes to inclement weather. You never know when your power is going out. You never know if someone else's cell service has gone down, so you need our text service. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So this is a great way to know about when we're actually posting about some serious stuff and when there's an urgent change to be made. So we'll always send out that text as well whenever we need you to actually get on that page and look at the forecast, because there's a big change or an impactful change. So yes, text WNK to that number right there. Very simple, just 3 letters, and could help keep you prepared for the future, really.
All right, WNK to 888-320-3872 to get on that text notification list with George and his crew. George, thanks for the time. I know, as you mentioned in the interview, that you've spent a lot of time lately working on these storms, watching models and doing all of that. And I'm sure you'll be doing a lot more of that over the next 24 hours. But thanks for taking the time to do this. And we hope to do this anytime we have this significant fall potential of snowfall or any inclement weather. We want to make sure that we are working together as teams in this community, whether it's WNK with your weather forecasts all the time and pushing it all through here through Kentucky's Heartland. So George, thanks for the time as always, buddy.
As always, we'll be right here to help everyone out. Thank you very much.
All right, the weather dude, that is George Herbig. I'm Greg Milby, community storyteller, and this is Kentucky's Heartland. Thanks for joining us.